Hey everybody, welcome. We are so glad that you are joining us today. It's always great to be with our PCA and HCCN friends, especially today, and as we come together to talk about some things relating to retention and TTA programs. We know that there is a lot of stuff going on for you guys right now, and we're definitely going to talk about that a little bit throughout the presentation, but definitely at the end. So anyway, welcome. Thanks for joining us. So I'm Suzanne Spear. I'm the Director of Workforce Development here at ACU. And again, we're just really glad that you're joining us today. For those of you who are new to the space or just want a refresher, ACU stands for the Association of Clinicians for the Underserved, and we really are workforce people. We are doing a lot of different things. We have a lot of different programs, but we were founded as a National Health Service Corps Alumni Association, and that remains true to our focus. And it remains our chief advocacy platform. We have tools and training materials and resources for clinicians as well as those who support clinicians working in underserved areas, and have lots of different opportunities for that, as well as networking opportunities at our conference in the summer. So, and the reason that we're here today, what enables us to be here today, I guess I should say, is ACU's National Cooperative Agreement, which is the STAR Center, and that stands for Solutions, Training, and Assistance for Recruitment and Retention. And our website is chcworkforce.org. I know you guys are all awesomely familiar with it, but always like to remind you guys that that is the place that you can find tools and materials for your work that you do every day with the health centers in your state. So if you haven't been there recently, go ahead and check it out and just pin it in your little toolbar there. It'll be awesome. So I just wanted to take a second and introduce the faculty on this, the ACU faculty. Yes, I'm Suzanne Spear, Director of Workforce Development at ACU, and I'm joined today on the call. They're not on video right now, but they are here with me. I have Mariah Blake, who's our Program Manager, and also Sabrina Edgington, who is our Director of Learning and Curriculum Design. So the gang's all here, you guys. We are here, and we are excited to just dive in and talk to you guys today. I would love to hear from you guys in the chat boxes and ask some questions. So just as a reminder, before we get into the housekeeping stuff that I was getting ready to go to, but I stopped myself, the goals of the series. We are here because we want to help build your workforce expertise. There are a lot of training opportunities out there, but there are not a lot of workforce training opportunities out there. So we're here to edify you guys on all things workforce through the lens of TTA providers, right? So you guys are TTA providers. We're a TTA provider as an NCA, but you guys are also a TTA provider as PCA. So we're here to help you build your workforce expertise. We are also going to be sharing throughout the way some PCA and HCCN successes, as well as our fellow NCA partners like we have today. And lastly, we want to connect you guys with others. So through the chat, through some time with questions at the end, we'll unmute you guys and you guys will be able to chat and talk. But really just connecting all the dots, right? There's so many resources out there that we just want to make sure that you guys have the most resources available to you to help you help your health centers. Okay, now we're at webinar housekeeping. Okay, yes, folks, we are recording this, and we will make this available to you guys after this session, and Mariah will go ahead and send it out to you guys. I know she already sent the slides out, so if you wanted to make some notes, if you wanted to print them out, you have those at your disposal, and you will be receiving the recording probably tomorrow. Yes, we want you to ask questions. We love questions. We hope that we have the answer, and if we don't have the answer immediately, then we will make sure that we find some place to point you to and get you the answer. Make sure that you do complete the session evaluation at the end of this. We'll try to give you some time. We have a packed agenda today, so I don't know if we'll have a ton of time, but if you don't have a chance to complete your session evaluation while we're on this Zoom webinar today, we'll make sure that Mariah sends it out afterwards, and please send that, please fill that out. And let's just have some fun. If you do have questions, you can use both the chat and the questions box. Sabrina and Mariah will both be monitoring those. I'll be monitoring those as well, but sometimes it's easier for folks who aren't presenting to be able to monitor those. So we make sure we have lots of folks on the sidelines to be able to answer your questions. And also too, if you want to make sure that everybody sees the question or the information that you're putting in the chat box, make sure you select all panelists and participants, all panelists and attendees, excuse me, in there. So it goes to everybody so everyone can see it. So with that, I think that's about all the housekeeping things that I have today. Let's go ahead and move into our content, which is incorporating staff experience into TTA programs. So just wanted to give you guys, think back a little bit as I set the stage for our guest speaker today. So last month, it feels like a week ago, doesn't it? But last month we had Judd Mellinger-Blouch from Pennsylvania PCA, and he was talking about how recruitment and retention are linked. And it was a perfect segue for our session today, talking about staff experience, because we're going to talk a little bit about the screening process that health centers can go through and how really that leads to overall, hopefully you're going to hire those folks and bring them on, or health centers hire those folks, bring them on as staff, and then really incorporate them into the culture of their organization. And all that has an effect on the positive staff experience. So think about that conversation, how Judd talked about the recruiting for retention hierarchy and how the recruitment process is so important to retention. It really does make a difference in the long run. And I know that a lot of your health centers are probably sort of having hiring freezes, or they're maybe even, I hate to say this and be the elephant in the room, but they're experiencing some hardships. And so, after the COVID-19, everything relating to it settles down, they might be ramping back up and hiring more folks. And so this session is going to be really important as you provide that TTA to your health centers at the end of all this, right? Because I know this is not business as usual right now, but think about this and what you can be doing after this crisis is over and we get back to what is normal after this, right? We don't know when it's going to happen. We don't know how it's going to look, but we know that things are going to settle down at some point. So keep that in mind as we go along. And again, we talked a little bit about onboarding. Our guest speaker is going to dive much more into this today, and so we just wanted to leave it there. So again, just think about how recruitment and onboarding, they lead to that positive staff experience, which overall leads to staff retention. And just in the interest of time, I think I'm going to go ahead and, well, we'll go ahead and do this question. So when it comes to staff experience, TTA, or maybe I should say positive staff experience, TTA, what comes to mind for you guys? I would love for you to put this in chat as we are introducing our guest speaker, and we're getting ready to introduce her. But what words come to mind when you think about staff experience or positive staff experience as it relates to TTA? And I would love to hear from you guys. Okay, we have a couple that are coming through. So supervisor and manager training, absolutely, that's a huge one. And our guest speaker is going to chat about that today and how the management is so crucial in this. And we talk about that all the time, about how managers can make or break a staff experience. So thank you so much. Positive organizational culture, as well as support services. Positive supportive culture, awesome. Good onboarding, great. All these things are exactly where we're going. So, so thank you for your input. Our guest expert today, hopefully you have heard her voice or seen her face before, but it is Amanda Schiessl, and she is the project director and the co-principal investigator on the National Cooperative Agreement for Clinical Workforce Development at Community Health Center, Inc. We talk a lot about Community Health Center, Inc. here at ACU with our work at the STAR Center, because they are the other workforce NCA. So they're the push workforce NCA, and we're sort of the pull. So they do a lot of health professions training, and then obviously we do workforce recruitment and retention there. So and CHC is also a community health center. So she has lots of great insight to share, and I'm excited to have her sort of pick off where Judd left off about screening and onboarding and overall positive staff experience. So Amanda, I'm going to hand it over to you. I have you with remote control. So if you want to go ahead and just left click, and then hopefully you'll be able to advance your slides. Whoops.
I think I might have exited you out by
There you go.
accident.
No worries. No worries.
Let's see if I can do this.
There you go.
Yay. All right. It's very exciting to see that 35 individuals are able to attend a health center. You know, we are uniquely positioned right now, respond to COVID. And in this picture, you know, holding Maple is actually our chief medical officer, who I went to our health center to stop in and see our lead medical director. What's happening is remarkable right now, and I applaud all of you for taking the time to join today, regardless of the situation that your health center is dealing with. Everyone hear me okay, right, Mariah? I know we're all dealing with internet and everything like that.
Yeah, I can hear you.
Perfect. I just really had to get off of a VPN or it might not work. The biggest thing for us here is that when it comes to maximizing the potential for a positive staff experience, it really is a two-tiered approach. And I'm going to talk a lot about what our health center does. But first, it's helpful to understand the lens. So for us, what's important is that, let's see if I can even, Suzanne, you might need to help me here.
Sure. Do you want to just, there you go, and you can you click on, there you go. You should have control now.
Okay, I'm going to click over here.
There you go.
All right. So our national cooperative agreement is awarded to Community Health Center Incorporated, which was actually founded in 1972 in Middletown, Connecticut, right in the center of the state, and since has expanded to almost 18 sites and 200 school-based sites across the state of Connecticut. As you can see from this gorgeous map, we see about 100,000 patients per year, which makes us relatively large in the sphere of the 1,400. And we really have a robust set of specialties based off of our really incredibly advanced level of team-based care. We also have access to, and I know that this is actually a lot more right now, but specialists through our constant network. So we provide an incredibly robust set of care through all of these different facets of our model. And the big points of the model is having an integrated team, but also integrated data. So a big thing we talk a lot about is empanelment and population health. We have a center for key populations, so our integration for our homeless population, HIV, opioids program, and a variety of other programs I'm sure I'm missing. And then data-driven performance, as I said, Pop Health. We have an incredibly robust business intelligence department. And then we talk about the wherever you are homeless approach. Our Weitzman Institute, which you might know about, which is where our NCA kind of lives. It's a department of CHC, founded in 2005, is our formal research and quality improvement arm. We provide practice redesign, focus on implementation science, and then are able to offer free resources on clinical workforce development to health centers, PCAs, HCCNs, other NCAs, just to share and scale our expertise. And really, this is all built off of the foundation that we've always had the three foundational pillars since 1972: clinical excellence, research and development, and training the next generation. And one of the biggest facets of that is that we did start the first ever nurse practitioner residency training program about a decade ago, and we continue to lead that movement across the country. And our clinical director and senior vice president created that model and is currently leading as our clinical director, and she's incredibly busy, but sends her regards and provided her expertise on these slides. And then, as always, the National Cooperative Agreement, I spoke about HRSA funds them, as I'm sure Suzanne has told you before, but really our main two buckets, as we call them, is advancing a model of team-based care and training the next generation. As a health center that does a lot of innovative things, our main goal is to share and scale those innovations to health centers across the country and free training, and it's done in national webinars, learning collaboratives, activity sessions, which are more of a consulting-based experience. We do conference trainings, research, and we put out publications such as our book on postgraduate residency and fellowship training. I know I'm moving very quickly, but it's always important to us to start every single presentation with some objectives. Thinking about the conversation about recruitment, retention, staff satisfaction, we really thought about the things that we put a lot of emphasis on in the beginning of our relationship with these individuals. Identify strategies for effective screening of candidates, what's your approach for interviewing potential candidates, and then understanding benefits of orientating to not only the larger org, so the community health center as a whole, but then in our robust team-based care model, each clinical discipline needs its own orientation as well. And those are the best practices we're going to share today. Something that I thought was really important is to frame the conversation. We know that other health centers, so as a PCA, you know every health center is uniquely positioned. This is 100% based off of a variety of factors, your patient population, what staffing you have, what resources you have. CHC, we're uniquely positioned. We have an interdisciplinary leadership, and that includes 4 clinical chiefs. All are on the same playing field. This gets a lot of, people have a lot of response to this. This is unique. A lot of individuals haven't thought of this. So Chief Medical Officer, the Chief Nursing Officer, Chief Behavioral Health Officer, and the Chief Dental Officer are a team. They all report to our Clinical Director and Senior Vice President. They work together on all facets of kind of operations and clinical care at the health center. A lot of health centers we've seen have a medical director who these individuals report to, and unfortunately our CMO was unable to join today. She would have been able to provide her perspective, and everything that was created today was in actually support of her guidance as we are developing a variety of materials to share this type of information. And feel free to put questions in the chat if you have questions. Another important way that I think we should frame this conversation is letting you know what our interdisciplinary team looks like. This is really important because I know that your health centers are not positioned in this manner. Some are, some aren't. It really varies. Some may be beginning with the teamlet and having a provider and an MA. Some may not. In our co-located design, which is across all of our sites, we have 2 medical providers. They share a registered nurse. They each have an MA. They have a behavioral health clinician, and then the space has additional areas for members such as podiatrist, dietitian, pharmacist, chiropractor, certified diabetes educator, and last but not least, we actually have opportunities for student and trainees to sit in this space. This is a perfect example and a photo of it. This is Dr. Lecce, our first ever doctor from 1972, which is just, you know, pretty remarkable and a testament to our health center as a whole. But when I'm talking about onboarding, it's really centered around this co-located concept. And I think that it's important to make sure that we set that frame. So we would be remiss not to begin with the most important conversation, sourcing. Really the main point here is that you should be posting. At CHC, we do have recruiters extensively to talk about this, but the 2 parts of sourcing that are important is 1, external. Where do you post? Where do you go? And post intentionally. So we like to utilize opportunities like Idealist or Indeed, thinking about how can you go to the right places to find people who are like-minded or have the credentials that you're looking for, as well as harvest candidates. I know for me, when I got my position at CHC, I began as the first student coordinator to create the infrastructure needed to take students at our health center. I was actually a harvested candidate. I had been applying for lots of opportunities, and they pulled my resume, and they felt that I had exactly what they were looking for, experience in a variety of different areas, and they really considered every single resume as a potential candidate for the position. Sourcing does take a lot of work, and it takes a lot of thinking innovatively. So I encourage you to encourage your recruiters to think in that manner. Internally, we really encourage individuals to think about internal candidates that you can then empower to larger positions or greater positions or more advanced positions, creating that pipeline internally and those opportunities for those people to grow. And last but not least, actually, CHC has a referral benefit. It is a tiered strategy depending on the type of position that you may refer, if it's administrative versus you're referring a doctor, but there is a financial referral benefit that comes along with it, and we encourage you to consider that. So discussion questions. I know that you are all from PCA, so I keep saying you. I'm very accustomed to speaking to the health center audience, but I think the big question for me is, what are common strategies that you see health centers use to source for potential candidates? Anything innovative that you've seen, and feel free to throw it into the chat. Ooh, HRSA job board. HRSA would love it if we said that. Definitely use the HRSA job board.
Yeah, I think that's one too. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, this is Suzanne again. So I think that's something that too, you know, people don't think about that, and it's definitely, especially if you have a HPSA that's high enough. I know HPSAs have gone all over the place lately, but especially if you have a HPSA that's high enough to support even just a loan repair, it's definitely worth posting on there.
Absolutely. I think this is a great recommendation. Thank you, Sarah. Sarah actually talked about partnering with the local health profession programs that have strategies used by our CHCs. A perfect example is we used the job posting board at Wesleyan. There's actually a couple of more streamlined apps that streamlined websites that organizations use that a lot of colleges are on. I can't think of the name right now, but we did do that. We're right near Wesleyan. And you're actually able to post in like Colorado, so you might be able to get individuals. And then also Sarah said the organizations does presentations to student programs to help promote CHC jobs. So important. I think planting the seed, we find that, you know, really important. And I encourage you too to kind of thinking outside the box, and maybe cliche, but great pipeline that I would be remiss not to encourage you to tell your health centers is residency programs. You know, giving them that opportunity, and we're going to talk about ramp up. That's an incredibly robust ramp up, but if you can provide a pipeline using a residency training program, you easily can find potential candidates for filling of positions. A perfect example is a health center in Hawaii. The residency program was so good that they actually ran out of room to keep residents because people were training and staying and being successful. And I encourage you to think about that as well. Thank you to Sarah and Anita. And yes. All right. So once you do have those resumes, you're getting those candidates coming through, how do you screen? So this expert information comes from our recruiters who screen an incredibly robust set of resumes. We have about 1,000 employees at CH, and you know, we encounter the same type of turnover as most organizations, not more or less, and no one is uniquely that they don't encounter that. So what are we looking for when it comes to that? For these individuals, I know that we're looking for a history of some experience in a primary health network. And really what that means is that we want these individuals to have had experience on the, I would say, you know, in primary care some capacity, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a health center. Obviously, ideally, these candidates don't always exist, but some sort of experience in integrated care setting. We know that not all training opportunities come along an integrated opportunity, but they are popping up, and so it's funding a lot of these experiences. So you may find students who trained in an integrated setting, which is great. Or maybe a background or commitment to the underserved population. Don't look past someone who volunteered and showed that they have a commitment to this population. You can't teach that kind of passion and commitment that our organizations as health centers are built of. I think that those things should be looked at as well. Set up a call and set the expectations. A big thing that we have a lot of, and I say we, I'm talking about the chiefs at our organization, that we speak about a lot is orientating to reality. we all know that this setting is unique, and the individuals, encounter somewhat of challenge. All healthcare is challenging in itself, but just being realistic. What are the clinical expectations that are going to be put out, laid out from the beginning in that first call? Lay out what is your integrated team-based care approach. Individuals may not realize that they'll be working with a behavioral health provider and a dental provider, and they will be having RN, and making sure that they really understand that this is a team model that our care is built off of. The realities of credentialing and onboarding, how long it takes, what that timeline looks like, what the expectations are for these individuals. Make sure they understand that. And last but not least, something that in our current environment, outside of COVID, just our current generation expectations, is individuals are putting a lot more emphasis on benefits. PTO, EME, even insurance can be a deal breaker for some individuals. So making sure that you're laying out that from the very beginning, I think, is incredibly helpful. So I'm just clicking happy over here. So here's a big point of conversation that I want to open up, and this comes from our senior vice president and our clinical director, is, set those essential criteria. A lot of our positions are Spanish speaking required. All of our providers have to be MAP providers. These are our essential criteria for us. What are some essential criteria that you might have seen at your organizations? Or any, you can give me your thoughts or feelings on the idea of essential criteria, but.
And I don't know if you guys want, I don't know if we're, if this might work, or you want to spend as much time on this, Amanda, but we want to open it up for people to, Mariah, do you want to unmute folks? And since we're going to unmute folks, if you want to weigh in, guys, we will just ask that you guys, we got some things in the chat. Okay, well, maybe it'll work in the chat. I just want to make sure it's easy for you guys. Okay, it's coming in on the chat. Perfect. We'll hold that for the end.
I'm fine with the quiet silence. It's fine.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to make sure we were having a productive conversation.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's great to hear that Spanish is a requirement for some of the clinics. I think that's a really big, point of conversation. And I know in some of our clinics, I think it might be this doesn't mean anything to any of you, unless you're from Connecticut, hello. Some of Polish speaking in some of our areas heavily. So that might be one. And that's a good point. We can't put essential criteria out there when finding providers. It's a good point. It makes it more challenging. And sometimes the longer you don't have a position filled, the longer it impacts that projections or bottom line, or it could have financial implications. It could have, we know it has implications on patients. So I do understand that. And I think that being fluid with the essential criteria is important, that we do flex that as needed. I think the MAP provider thing is something, and someone said a big one, mission minded is this, and I definitely talk about the mission minded during interviews. And another great point, OB GYN is huge. Those more specialty positions take a lot more time in sourcing, and I'd be happy to provide some additional post kind of webinar, any fun facts or practices that we use for the specific positions. Looking for good skills. Oh, wow. So someone's acquiring post-grad experience, and we often have a lot of new grads contacting us for positions. A good point of conversation there is, for example, since we have the residency, we don't hire new grads. We actually encourage them to join the residency program because having a residency allows us to do this year-long ramp up, and then they actually stay on for an additional year after. We don't have the resources to onboard new grads, but if it's requiring postgraduate experience, it really depends. We see that a lot of organizations are doing this incredibly robust ramp up over a couple months that is very similar to a resident. So we encourage you to let your health centers know that if they are doing this, maybe just residency. And the residents get paid 70% of the market payment, and then they on an extra year, and I'd be happy to share more about that. But I know that is a big point of contact. Thank you. All right, so screening. We have a unique strategy for screening at CHC. We take it very seriously because we feel that identifying the right employees for your organization and model of team-based care is crucial. And we utilize a multi-round and multi-tiered approach. And this really includes layering the organization's structure from HR, clinical leaders, to senior leadership into the interviews. And it's normally 3 rounds. And it's if you're ill or you're it really every single individual goes through. A big point of consideration for you all right now, we have no option, will be everyone will be using video conferencing or phone, but is it crucial to have video conferencing or is it crucial to have it in person? Most of ours do occur in person prior to COVID-19, but really, in order to identify the individual who shares the organization's passion and commitment, it's really important that you ground your interview in approach in reality. And something that our leadership really wanted me to stress to you is that this is bi-directional. So making sure that you're getting from the candidates what you need to vet them, and then you're also giving to the candidates what they may need to consider the opportunity to work at your organization. So don't forget that. So something that I do want to hammer home before I do talk about this is at CHC, we actually have our senior vice president and clinical director, who was the first APRN in 1972, and our CEO actually does every single final interview for every candidate that comes through the organization. Mission-minded and fit is very important to us, and the individuals that sculpted that mission are doing the final layer of that interviewing process. And for us, keeping in mind we are an incredibly large organization with a research institute and multiple subsidiaries, as well as over 100,000 patients per year, but it's important to them. They do put the effort to meet a single individual as a last round interview, and that's sometimes they determine that they are not the right fit for our organization, and that is something that they have stayed true to for since 1972. So I think the big question is, what are some strategies that your health centers utilize that are unique or similar to ours, or really just any thoughts about that? And I'd love to know if someone else has their leadership do final interviews as well. I think that'd be great to hear. This is a great, I love this. A couple of CHCs use a hiring committee made up of different staff for final interviews, and it assesses culture fit. I love that. You know, we see with the multiple rounds of interviews, you get varying different perspectives. You get with the HR, they're looking for something else. A group of staff from the site, you get another different perspective, as well as from the leadership. But I really love that. Is the hiring committee always the same? I guess would be my question. And then someone did say organizational shadowing. My biggest question for you, Sarah, would be how much time and effort does that take? We're uniquely positioned with the opinion that shadowing is incredibly time consuming, as well as with HIPAA and infection control requirements. It can be somewhat of a burden for processing paperwork accordingly. Any thoughts on that? Oh, yay! Someone does have a CEO that does one-on-one with each candidate. I can't wait to tell our leadership that. And our providers are given the opportunity to interact during lunch or dinner with the candidates, as well as to assess fit from their perspective. Amazing. Oh, wow. In the hiring committee, there's a pool of staff that volunteer from each department. Incredible. You know, these are really, really important strategies. And I do encourage you, if you have, I call it, if you do have your founding individuals a part of the organization, they really understand the fit the best. I think fit is such a unique conversation to be had. And I think individuals who have been with your organization for a long period of time, you know, really understand fit. And there's no right or wrong way to do it. But these are incredible suggestions, and I hope you take them back to your health centers. So as I talked about, there really is a two-tiered orientation at our organization. It's really incredibly structured. It's also individualized, and it's really for all new staff, but also I'm going to focus on new providers as well. First, there is a large interdisciplinary orientation of the organization, whether they're the call center or they're a patient services associate or the new chief of pediatrics. They are all in the same orientation together. This happens bi-monthly. I know one of the months is incredibly robust, and then following that, there is discipline-specific onboarding and training that does take a couple weeks depending on the role. So if you're a patient services associate who's at the front, you need to know about scheduling systems and electronic health records and processes and policies, whereas other individuals may only need to be in read-only in the electronic health record. So we're not going to get into training, but the biggest thing here is you need to have an individual. We're talking about staff satisfaction, right? And you need an individual that's communicating effectively within HR. From the initial point of contact, whether it's effective screening or not, or it's all about the satisfaction with your organization and the experience. A big one's credentialing. I talked about setting an expectation for credentialing. Credentialing can be hard. It can be long. It can be tough. Make it clear from the beginning that they understand that so that their satisfaction is more, you're kind of increasing the ability that they may be satisfied with their experience because you were honest with them. But the biggest thing here is that the goal is that these individuals are full scope, independent primary care providers that are confident, competent, and resilient in the primary care setting. That's always our goal. It's really our goal of our residency, but it's also our goal when it comes to onboarding new providers as well as staff members. Just to go back, Laura, thank you so much. Laura said she does a first round either via web or in person, and then they have a hiring team of staff leaders from specific departments that they fit in. The executive director sits on the second round, and for providers, we add brief shadowing. Perfect. So you do have the HIPAA form, and you do a lunch with the entire team for a licensed position so they can meet the team they'll be working with, and generally dinner as the health center clinical leadership. Wow. Wow. That's incredible. So here's a follow-up question. How often do you do that? And also, it's incredible that a big thing here is buy-in, individuals who want to be a part of that. But I love that you hit on, you're assessing fit, you're introducing them to the team, you're letting them experience the clinic, and then you're also having them get exposure to clinical leadership. I think what's nice is and I talk about this right now in our robust orientation, we actually do a meet and greet with leadership too. I think, it's very important, and our leaders wanted to make sure that you knew that we feel that this is really important, that from the get-go, leadership cares about the staff at the organization, and that's a nice way to set the tone for the future work that's to come. And then Sarah just added that for rural areas, long-term fit can be key, and the shadowing can add elements of community. I love that. Our residency program acts as community tours so that the individuals can go and meet the mayor, and they meet various community groups. Like some of our organization has dance studio and a playhouse and a soup kitchen, and they really get to experience the site. Support retention, so it balances out the effort, not for every role. And then they have a small team. The lunch and dinner is a second round on site visits. We have the person. Amazing. I think, these little touches are so important for our setting. So really, this is our interdisciplinary orientation to the organization. It's a 2-day, twice a month, and it includes some key elements that I hope you can take back to your organizations and share with them. Tours of the sites are really important so that they can see the different types of settings. All are built around the same exact mentality, but look different. HR overview, PTO, HIPAA, privacy, IT is a big one. But really the biggest points that I want to hit home is, history, the model of values. Really introduce them to what is the heart of the health center, as well as have them meet and greet with leadership. Something we also do is every individual, regardless of what position you're coming into, must write a you work day. Write about the organization in a 1-page. It's sent to our Senior Vice President and our CEO, and they read every single one. And then they have an hour-long meeting with all of the new staff to talk about those essays and to share. And it's just very, very important to our organization. I'm actually going to skip this one just because at the time, but I want to share about the discipline-specific onboarding. So each of our clinical chiefs actually provides an orientation to their clinical discipline. And this, as I said, is an extended period of time for ramp up, which is, in our setting, very important based off of the current climate of where individuals are coming out of from education and then really jumping into the setting. It also allows them to develop their panels and practices within their team, but also the electronic health record, as well as with policies. There is a period of time where learning occurs. And then, as I said, really learn the art of the practice and the model that they have walked into. And this last, we see that depending on the discipline, it's around 4 to 6 hours of intensive training. I think what's important is that different facets like psychiatry, which is kind of somewhat of a twofold between medical and behavioral health, depending on your state. They may have more boarding, so it may be more robust of 6 hours versus not. But what I pulled from here is the ones that we see are the same across all disciplines. So bylaws and credentialing, committees, peer review, performance appraisals, chronic care policies, patient inspection. Very important, our CMO stressed a lot, is that during this orientation, you're really setting the expectations of what the individual is going to be held to. There will be performance appraisals. There will be clinical expectations. This is what we really want you to understand for the get-go. If hard conversations do have to be had, you can relate back to this onboarding, and you can relate back to that conversation of, this is really lays the foundation for the relationship with your employees. And it sets a strong, moment communication that you have created this relationship over this intensive training with your leadership, and you know that they're available to you. Let's see. Just because I know that Suzanne wants to speak a little bit, and I want to open up for conversations. The biggest points of, conclusions for us that we really want to stress to all of you is retention really begins at the point of pre-employment. Sourcing and interviewing. Do not undervalue these opportunities of setting a strong foundation with this individual. Clearly communicating with them, providing them with support, wanting to be successful. I know that a lot of our recruiters provide very robust prep for interviews, and I can't stress enough that this really is the point that retention begins. Lay the foundation in everything that you do with clear, realistic expectations. I always say, when it's very fluffy, it doesn't need to be fluffy. We want everyone to be successful, and we want them to be prepared to come into this environment. The interdisciplinary orientation is key. Don't break up individuals based off administration or behavioral health or dental. Really robust healthcare and primary care is built off of this team mentality. So let's keep them together. Provide time for that transition to practice. Don't just throw individuals right into the work. Provide them with opportunities to get acclimated to their team. Provide them with opportunities to get acclimated to the EHR. And really put value in orientation specific to each discipline, as each is unique in its own. And it's very important that you're providing them with this really mission-driven orientation to your organization throughout the entire process, from screening and sourcing all the way through to actually integrating them to the clinic. And I hope that this has all been incredibly helpful, and I look forward to more discussion, but I'll pass it on to Suzanne.
Thank you. Sorry, I need to take it back. Yeah, thank you so much, Amanda. I think if there's anything that you can take away from our last 2 sessions here for you guys, is that recruitment is super important when it comes to retention. And I think that if you remember from our last time talking, sorry, I was going to turn my video again. From our last time talking, people said, some people didn't think that recruitment was important when it comes to retention, but I hope that you will have that takeaway and really help your health centers understand how important that process is, because I know when I did my time during doing direct recruitment, we had health centers that put a lot of value and spent a lot of time in the recruitment process, and some that just sort of were like, well, they'll come to us if they want a job, right? And so I think if we want to hire quality people, and Amanda spent a lot of time talking about that today, and have them be satisfied and ramp up quicker, that we need to not only hire the right people, but also give them a foundation to really jump off on. So I will open it up for questions for, if you guys have, do you have any questions for Amanda or me about this particular subject before we move on? Because we're going to totally switch gears here in a second. So I just want to make sure you guys have adequate time to ask her any questions that you would like, or any parting thoughts about maybe what you have done around this subject, or maybe what you guys feel like you're going to do in the future on this subject. And I really appreciated Amanda telling us, and I didn't know that until we started talking about this, that CHC, that their CEO does every final interview. I know that's really probably common in small health centers. I had some conversations with an executive director in Maine, and they have a very small health center. They have like 3 sites, but it's a very small community, and it's a pretty small health center compared to CHC. But she does all of this because she feels like it's really important. But it's really interesting to hear that a large health center does that. So especially, I think, my takeaway from that is that it doesn't really matter your size if you really value having the right people. And I'm not saying it's you should do it, or that it's crucial to do that, but I think that that's a good thing if you get pushback from health centers that say, well, we're too big to do that, and you can say, well, CHC does it, and they're a really big health center. And it's not that again, it's the gold standard, but I think it just goes to show you that no matter what your health center size, and because no matter what state you're in, you're going to have health centers that look very different. And so I think maybe putting those things out there, that all these things are important no matter what, especially when it comes to the recruitment process. And even if a CEO isn't able to be on every last interview, that they prioritize the recruitment process no matter what they're saying. So that's kind of my main takeaway, and really setting people up for a foundation.
Yeah, I think what I always say to individuals is that we're unique position to be able to share what works for us, and to keep in tune with what's working for other people too. And I hope you take away inspired to either innovate, or maybe you're like, oh, that makes me think of some other strategy. Tell us. We really love to know what's happening in the centers across the country. And it may not work for you, it may work for you. We see a lot of adaptation of our best practices, so I definitely encourage you to keep open communication. And I thank you, Suzanne, for that kind words. I know it takes a lot of work for them to do all of them. I do want to say that on these slides, we had been marketing for webinars celebrating the role of the nurse in the current COVID crisis. We've made the decision to actually shift our strategies to providing free resources around COVID-19. And I'm going to actually have Suzanne share those resources with all of you. But we have emergency preparedness webinars that have been going out for free, as well as free COVID echo sessions for providers to join. And they'll be offering actually 4 over the next month. So that will be in lieu of those webinars, just because right now we feel that that's what health centers need. So I'll encourage you to share those resources with your health centers. As well as you're welcome to join if you wanted to learn any things. And a good question around telemedicine. We are actually, as a health center, obviously, we're learning as well as you all. Example, today it was announced in Connecticut that the audio is actually covered by Medicaid for Connecticut now, which I know is progressing in different states. We're moving at lightning speed here. It's not, I just got off of a call with NAC and HRSA. It's not covered under Medicare right now. That could change. We don't have any plans for telemedicine other than offering free e-consults. So I will,
Mm-hmm.
pass that along as well to all of you as those free resources, but nothing yet on telemedicine. We are considering putting together, if your health centers have residencies, a response webinar. You're looking for procedures. I actually think that there's some resources I can pass along that I've been funneling
Yeah.
around. But yeah,
And I
anyway,
know,
sorry.
yeah, no, Amanda, thank you. I just wanted to echo that and sort of, I know that I'm pretty sure that, I don't know if we have policies and procedures, but maybe either Sabrina or Mariah could put it in the chat for telemedicine. I know that there is a Center for Medicare and Medicaid came out with something. I'm not sure exactly what it has. I'm pretty sure, I feel like there's so much out there right now. But anyway, I don't have access to it right now since I'm looking at you guys, but I feel like there's some guidance or something around that. So maybe we can follow up when Mariah sends that out, maybe anything that we have, any resources that we have when we send out the recording that we can pass along to you guys, because I know that is a huge topic right now. And on a brighter note, I mean, I'm kind of bummed that it took a crisis to get it going, but it's kind of, it's awesome that it is getting passed, and it is, people are seeing it as a great resource. So we will pass on anything that we can for you guys as well. Great, thank you, Mariah. Okay, so I wanted to switch gears, and we only have about 8 minutes, so we're going to have to go through these pretty quickly. But I wanted to go, and thank you again, Amanda. You did a great presentation, and I love that you guys have such a unique perspective and come at it from a workforce NCA lens, but as well as a CHC lens, because I think it really helps, and it, again, it provides a really unique perspective. Okay, y'all.